The New York Islanders end their season at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 4 by a score of 5-2. The Hurricanes' first playoff sweep in franchise history. And probably the least satisfying... I don't even know how to phrase this in words. For a 103-point season, one of the best regular seasons in franchise history, best since 1983-84, for it to end like this is probably the biggest, the worst conclusion you could have possibly imagined. And I don't want to hear how good this season was. I don't want to hear how much they subverted expectations right now. This team had expectations they did not meet. They had expectations the moment they clinched a playoff spot, the moment they clinched home ice in the first round, the moment they swept Pittsburgh, one of the teams most picked by every bracket maker in the league to win the cup. They swept them and got swept in the second round. That hasn't happened since 1993, and it's the 10th time in NHL history that it has ever happened. So I don't want to hear how great of a season this was right now, because this team underperformed. On paper, talent-wise, this is a better team. The reality is Carolina wanted it more. Carolina wanted it more, and they showed it in every single game. And I don't care how well they played in games 1 and 2. Okay, I don't care how well they played in games 1 and 2, because they should have, this series should at least have been 3-1 or 2-2 with the way that they played in games 1 and 2. Now, the moment they left Brooklyn down 0-2, that was the real finisher. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Game 4. Okay, so Game 4, a do-or-die Game 4, with some understandable lineup shuffling from Trotz. I like the combinations that he ended up rolling out. One mistake was not putting Greiss in goal at the start of Game 4. Now, this isn't to say Leonard has played poorly. Leonard played a fantastic series. He allowed, up until Game 4, he allowed, aside from the 2 empty netters, 3 goals tops in Game 3, 2 goals in Game 2, 1 goal. The first game was 1-0 in overtime. This series was probably the closest sweep you could find, aside from Game 4. This was probably the closest sweep you could find in recent NHL history. And at the end of the day, none of that. So, Game 4. So, this isn't on Leonard. This is not on Robin Leonard, no matter what he might say, no matter what anybody might say. Sure, Game 3's game-winning goal was a fluke play that he made along the boards. Now, you could argue he should have flipped the puck the other way away from the Carolina offender, but he didn't, and that was a gaffe. The last two, the second and third goal from the Carolina make it 2-1 and 3-1 respectively, those were on him. They were a little soft. And mentally, especially after that third goal was what buried them. Instead of 2-1, I was worried. But 3-1, that was it. That was the series. It sucked the life out of the Islanders. But really, the turning point of this game was the own goal by the Islanders on the Carolina power play. I don't know if it was Pelech. I don't know if it was Matt Martin. But the Islanders deflecting the Canes' first power play goal of the playoffs is what did them in. That was it. You could feel the momentum. You're in a hostile building, and I have to give Canes fans credit because the home ice advantage that they established in games 3 and 4, it sealed it. It was a great atmosphere for if you're a Carolina fan. It was a great atmosphere. It was a great building for Canes fans. But that's a point aside. That power play goal again. Carolina's first power play goal of the playoffs. That was the turning point of this game. So Greiss should have started. Komarov. Leo Komarov. I don't know why. All right, and listen. Komarov was brought in the offseason, and Lamoriello was looking for hardworking character type of guys to make an impact on the young players. I don't know what business they had putting him in the couple of games of this series, but he has looked horrendous, along with most of the forwards in this second round series. If you're looking for one guy to scratch in that forward lineup, it's Komarov. 10 times out of 10. Second guy up, Matt Martin. Matt Martin, I hate to say it, as much as he lauded, as much as he was a part of the Islanders' identity line this season, as great of a season that fourth line had, horrible showing from him in the second round series. That's number 2 I would have scratched. Now, the Lewin position, I understand the veteran status. You got to keep guys like Komarov. You got to keep the Valtteri Filppula. Nothing against Filppula, but you got to keep the veteran guys in according to the Lamoriello position. Komarov should have sat. That was another mistake. But for this game, I mean, they came out, the Islanders came out in the first period, got that power play goal from Barzal. Barzal, by the way, you can't blame Barzal, one of their best forwards throughout the second round series. The lack of finish, you can't really blame on either Barzal or he was one of their best forwards this series. And unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. You can't buy a goal. But really, the biggest thing that sticks out at me, or that should stick out, not for me, for the Islanders, their lack of offense, their thinness at offense was exposed in the second round series. 3 goals. 3 goals between the first 3 games. Okay, so if you're looking at fingers to point, like all season long, it's the offense not getting the job done. For as great of a first-round series as Brock Nelson, Beauvillier had a really good first-round series. Your main offensive producers, Anders Lee, invisible in the second-round series. And the Game 4 performance is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. 1,000 times worse than the 2016 Game 5 elimination game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why? That year, in 2016, I think, and I probably speak for most, not fans, pundits, whatever, the Islanders, it wasn't looking good for them in that second-round series at all. On paper, the matchup, whatever, there was not much expected from them in that second-round series. This year, that Hurricanes team is beatable. Curtis McElhinney has never started a post-game, a playoff game in his life. And he gets 3 straight wins. A career backup. Never a second of playoff starting goalie action. And you make him look like Patrick Waugh. Absolutely disgusting. And Hurricanes fans should enjoy it. They should enjoy the performance the team put on. But the reality is, and I'm sorry to say it, they're going to get exposed in the third round. Columbus, Boston, I don't care. Even the Islanders, even as an Islanders fan, they would have been exposed in the third round as well because both Columbus and Boston have superior offensive talent, are rolling defensively, and have rocks. More so Columbus than Boston, but they have rocks in net. Bobrovsky, if they advance, is going to shut the door the rest of the way, as he has been this playoffs, except for game 4, Boston. It was, but still, overall, I mean, Canes fans should enjoy it. But don't get ahead of yourselves. Don't get ahead of yourselves because now the layoff is coming for them. And the Islanders, that 10-day break coming out of Game 1 killed them. It goes to show, and I'm still a pretty young fan. I'm only 23 years old. I'm going to turn 24 in a month. For as much as I know about hockey, and I like to say that I do my homework, I'm learning a lot. The playoffs, one thing I learned this year, it's all about momentum. That 10-day break killed them. Carolina was hungrier. Carolina wanted it more. Carolina was a faster team. On the pucks, aggressive, hungry. Every one of those lines rolling. Especially in light of injury. They lost Trevor Van Riemsdyk in the first shift of Game 2. Then they lose Mrazek. And on top of Svechnikov sitting, Jordan Martinook, all these key contributors who really made themselves known, the Islanders needed to capitalize. This team is weak on paper. They're a well-coached team. They're an aggressive team. They're a fast team. But on paper, you're better. And they still are. They still are. Talent-wise, numbers-wise, you look at them on paper, they're better. They're better than a 4-game sweep. I don't care how good this regular season was. Again, they're a better team on paper. They were better than they should have shown in this playoffs. Absolutely embarrassing performance. Embarrassing. Disgusting. The Islanders lost this series, a full series recap now, looking at encompassing the entire second round. Getting out of the first game 1-0 in overtime, I thought it was going to be, and it was exactly what it was. It was a tight series front to back. The only difference is that when push came to shove in a game of centimeters, not inches, centimeters, Carolina had more focus, had more jump, and they just wanted it more. At the end of the day, they just wanted it more. The 10-day break lost the Islanders' focus. They clearly weren't nearly as engaged as were in Pittsburgh. They maybe got a couple. They might have gotten away with some things in the first round that they didn't in the second round against a much faster, much more aggressive team. But they weren't there to meet the challenge. They weren't there to match the intensity. You're about to get swept. Carolina has never, ever swept a team in the playoffs before in their history. This is how you go out? You're the first team to be victims of a Carolina sweep ever. That's going to go in history books. That's how you want to be remembered after such an impeccable season. Robin Leonard, a Vezina candidate. Thomas Grice's career is revived. The defense were worst to best in goals against. 293 goals against last year. 191 against this year. Or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure that's it. This is how it ends? Really? And Anders Lee, and I'm sorry to put the spotlight on him, but he's the captain. He's the face of this team now. They gave him the C. Where were you? Where were you to lead? You did a great job until now, but there was some kind of rally that never took place. No rally ever took place. Oh. I have a headache. My head's spinning. I didn't expect them to win this series. After down 2-0, I didn't expect them to win this series. Honestly. Seriously. I was like, that's it. But you can't split in Carolina? I expected a split. Take one game. Curtis McElhinney, a backup goalie. Unbelievable, the lack of finish. Scott Mayfield missing the wraparound attempt in Game 2. 3 posts hit in Game 2. I mean, you want to talk about what, whatever it might be. Carolina got lucky. They deserved to get lucky. Now, I'm not taking credit away from Carolina. I'm not. Listen, Carolina deserved to win. It's that simple. They deserved it. They earned it. They played much better. They showed much more heart. Justin Williams is one of the most clutch playoff performers in all of in hockey right now. And maybe, probably not ever. He's a clutch playoff performer. He's leading that team. That team clearly has everything from the bunch of jerks, the sense of identity they've established. I mean, they just wanted it more. And really, I'm not upset that they lost. I have, as a fan, I have no problem taking an L. But to go out like that? To get swept? You swept Pittsburgh. They swept Pittsburgh. Again, the team that was one of the teams that was supposed to win the cup this year swept in the first round. And then you get swept by the Hurricanes? Really? Makes absolutely no sense to me. Now, that's what the series was as a whole. And again, there will be time. There will be time in this offseason. This offseason starts right now. There will be time later to discuss how great of a regular. Then because they had a great regular season, there will be time to discuss how great that regular season was. There will be time to talk about how Robin Leonard turned his career around, how Robin Leonard put himself on the map, the defense turned it around, the structure imposed by Barry Trotz. There'll be time to talk about all that. Right now, this is horrendous. Horrendous performance. And again, in 2016, when they were eliminated by Tampa in that 5th game, that was more or less, let's not lie to ourselves, that was more or less expected. This team, on paper, again, should have beat Carolina. But they didn't. So, now you enter the offseason, and it's very clear what this team is lacking. It's lacking a finisher, that go-to guy to be able to push your team over the edge offensively when you need it. And just depth. I mean, they got great depth scoring this year. They got great depth scoring all through the regular season. Where was that in the playoffs? That 4th line was being dragged by Cizikas the entire time. The 3rd line? Look, as much as Filppula had a great regular season, he did all the right things. I didn't think he'd play that bad. But look, nothing from that 3rd line. Now, say what you want about Kuhnhackl. I think Kuhnhackl was one of the best forwards this year in the playoffs. Hell, he was probably just one of the best forwards in general. He didn't play regularly. Every time he came in, he was noticeable on the ice. And he held that penalty kill together all year and in the playoffs. Their penalty kill was superb. Hell, even their power play really wasn't that bad this year. And not in the regular season, in the playoffs. The regular season was abysmal. One of the worst power plays, as usual, as we've come to expect. One of the worst power plays in the regular season. Not bad in the playoffs. Great penalty kill in the playoffs. But it goes to show defense alone isn't going to get you. Is only going to get you as far as you can make it. They needed mediocre offense. They didn't even get mediocre offense. They got 3 goals in 3 games. They got 5 goals in 4 games in the second round. Gross. Gross. Disgusting. So now, there's not much to do right now except lick your wounds. Continue watching the postseason. Me personally, I'm pulling for the Sharks. I don't really think they'll make it past the Avalanche, but I want Joe Thornton to close his career off with a cup. But that aside, if you're the Islanders right now, I mean, that's it. The ride's over. And it ended, for as great as the season they had, the train derailed and a 18-car pileup just crashed and burned. They just deteriorated. Terrible. And again, I'll say it again if you're just tuning in. I'll say it again. I don't care. I don't care how great the regular season was right now. I don't care what they accomplished thus far. They had home ice in the second round. They didn't capitalize. And look, all right, talking on home ice. Brooklyn. There are people, fans, pundits, whoever you want to say, schlubs, whatever. Barclays wasn't conducive to a playoff environment, dude. Barclays was what it is. It was loud in that building. Was it the Coliseum? No. Nothing's the Coliseum. The Coliseum's the Coliseum. It's beautiful. Probably one of the reasons why they swept Pittsburgh in that first round. They got off to a 2-0 series lead. Brooklyn was not the Coliseum, but it was loud. It was nice. Fans showed up. They did their part. Now, I don't want to hear about the bad ice. I don't want to hear about the Brooklyn. I don't care. Both teams play on that same ice surface. The Islanders scored 1 goal in 2 games in Brooklyn. Okay? So, I don't want to hear about Brooklyn. It's not Brooklyn. It's not. Both teams play on that ice. Both teams compete on that ice. One team wins on that ice, and it wasn't the Islanders in neither game. Okay? So, I don't want to hear about Brooklyn. I don't want to hear about the Coliseum. Listen, let's just get this out of the way right now. Okay? Because I've been hearing too much about Barclays. I want to establish one thing, and I need to make this clear. They play at Barclays because the Coliseum, and it's not about seating. The Coliseum is 13,900 and change. Barclays Center is 15,575. That's not the reason why they play in Brooklyn. The reason why they play in Brooklyn is because the Barclays Center has over 50 suites or whatever like that. The Coliseum has 9. Okay? So that's a lot of revenue loss, and that doesn't just affect John Ledecky and Scott Malkin. That affects the league. That affects everyone in the when the owners get together at the end of the season in the NHL. The lack of suites in the Coliseum is the reason why they're not there. It affects everyone besides the Islanders owners. That's why they're not in Nassau. They might be in the Coliseum if they had 20, 30, whatever suites. They might still be there, but that's the reality of it, okay? It's not the ice. It's not the attendance. It's not politics. It's not any of that. When Bettman says it's an AHL arena, when Bettman says it's not conducive to be an NHL arena, it basically is an AHL arena. Let's not kid ourselves. It's the suites, okay? So that's that on the Coliseum. It wasn't Brooklyn's fault. Carolina was a hungrier team. The Islanders didn't look like the Barry Trotz Islanders in games 3 and 4. They lost the structure. They let pressure get to them, and at the end of that's it. That's the series. Not winning a game at home, not splitting in Carolina. Game 3, that was it. Game 3 was the pivotal game, and they barely showed up for that. They barely did. Too much hesitation to shoot the puck. In backtracking a bit, in game 3, power play, I think 3 or 4 or whatever, there was a particular play on the right-hand side of the ice. Bailey has the puck, and he's either looking to spread a seam open for a cross-ice pass. I don't know what he's thinking, but he fans on it, and the puck gets cleared. And that's probably the best way to describe that, because he was in a scenario where he should have shot. He was at the bottom right point, and he gets picked apart. He gets picked off by the defender, and puck clears. That's it. Okay? So, special teams, not splitting in Brooklyn, not winning a game in Brooklyn, not winning game 3, that did them in. And, like I said, I think the Islanders, I still think on paper they're the more talented team. But the matter of fact is that Carolina, like I said, wanted it more, was hungrier, got what they deserved. Okay? I repeated myself a little bit, but I want to drive that home. So, as magical of a season this is the way it ends. That bitter, sour, acidic taste in the mouths of Islanders fans. We deserve better. The Islanders probably deserve better in the first 2 games, but the way they played in games 3 and 4, Carolina, kudos to them. They earned it. They earned their 5-game exit in round 3. And Carolina fans should absorb this while they still can. Because like I said, even for the Islanders, if the Islanders made it past round 2, I highly doubt they would get past round 3. And Carolina sure is, is not getting past round 3. Okay? And I'll say that right now confidently. Curtis McElhinney is a career backup goaltender. Even Peter Mrazek's numbers were not that good in the regular season. In the playoffs this year. I'm sorry, regular season. Jesus Christ. Both goaltenders' numbers weren't that great. They'll get exposed in round 3. That's it. And I think the Islanders should have exposed them. Not exposed them. The Islanders should have beat them. They didn't. And that's what it'll be. If Columbus advances to round 3, I got Columbus in 6. If Boston advances to round 3, I got Boston in 5. There you go. That's my round 3 prediction. Package it, send it, ship it, whatever. But you know what? Carolina advanced, and honestly, this has been an interesting season for the playoffs all around. If Columbus manages to advance, Dallas manages to advance, and the Avalanche manage to advance, it will be I don't know if this will be the first time ever, but it'll literally be a battle of the wild cards. And honestly, for hockey, I'm going to dial it back a little bit, because for hockey, the fact that 4 wildcard teams could potentially be in the the third round plus for the playoffs, that's great for hockey. And that's great for the NHL, and I think the teams that are there deserve to be there. Especially, my pick right now is Columbus to advance out of the East. Out of the West, still kind of a toss-up, especially that Dallas-St. Louis series could really go either way. Actually, that's what's on right now. Dallas is up 1-0 on St. Louis with 9:12 left in the first. That series could go either way. I think the Avs-Sharks series could go either way, but the Avs definitely have a tilt, being a younger, faster, more skilled offensive team, especially Sharks in goal. Martin Jones, he's looked terrible this year. He either is going to make or break that team. But, yeah, disappointing finish to such a historic season for the New York Islanders. I mean, it really sucks that it ended like this, and I'm pissed off about it now, as you all should be. You should be pissed off. But I'll get over it. We'll get over it. And you know what, Toronto fans? I already saw some chirping on Twitter. Shut up. Your team is in cap hell. Your boy wonder GM signed an $11 million center in the offseason when they needed defense. Your entire team crumbled again in Game 7 against Boston. You're looking at cap hell with Mitch Marner and a number of other guys capping in. All those other guys looking at contract extensions and then Austin Matthews range. That team's going to get picked apart. I mean, they had such a great future before they signed Pajama Boy. But you know what? That's the way it goes sometimes. And it's hilarious to see Leafs fans chirping when they didn't even make it to round 2. I don't care that the Islanders didn't even win a game in round 2. They made it to round 2. But, yeah, that's for Leafs fans. Anyway, look, guys, it's been a great season. It really has been. It sucks the way that it ended, but we have nothing. As Islander fans, we have nothing to be upset about. This was a great year. The team subverted expectations from the beginning, picked by most to be out of the playoffs, picked by Deadspin to be dead last in the league. Not only did they make the playoffs, they swept Pittsburgh in the opening round and even made it to the second round. So, this is a gut punch right now, but at the end of the day, this team is so much better off than they were exactly a calendar year ago, when they were eliminated from postseason contention. When were they eliminated? Like mid-March, maybe? Yeah, it so much better off. There's going to be a lot to discuss in terms of what should change, and obviously a lot will change. This Islanders team this year is not going to be at all what the next season's team is going to look like, and that's a great thing, because this team on paper not only subverted and exceeded expectations, but set a bar. They set a bar for themselves going into next season. They have to get better on paper. They have to go after these big-name free agents. They need a lot of help up front at offense. They have a litany of free agents. Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Robin Lehner. They got to re-sign Barzal. They got to re-sign Beauvillier. Beauvillier, I think, contract expires this season, and then Barzal should be entering his last year of his contract, but it would be wise to get both locked up now. Yeah, that defense, man. The Islanders' defense this year, for whatever happened, forget what happened in the round 2, spectacular this year. I think that they have a lot of moving parts that they're going to have to be shuffling. Unfortunately, and for just to say this now, this is a little random, but Boychuk's presence in the lineup wouldn't have made a difference. Just to point that out there now. He's a defenseman. He scores like 5 goals a season. He's a great guy. He's a great defenseman. He's a fantastic presence on that blue line. Wouldn't have made a difference. At the end of the day, it was offense. Offense killed them this series. Offense killed them all season. And those Pittsburgh games, they won Game 3 4-1. They won Game 4 3-1. They won Game 1 4-3. They won Game 2 whatever. Point is, it was close. It was closer than we might have not seen all year, and it came back to bite them. And you know what? The offense, that lose Lou Lamoriello's inactivity at the trade deadline came back to haunt the Islanders. And I wrote about it extensively in my columns on ESNY, and I talked about it extensively throughout the year. But at the end of the day, that's what killed them, was the lack of activity the offseason. The offseason. The lack of activity at the trade deadline, not getting guys like a Mike Hoffman or some kind of roster player who would have cost maybe a handful of draft picks or depth guys. That was it. That was the difference. At the end of the day, they didn't get the finisher. They didn't get the depth that they needed. I understand Lou's perspective in doubling down on the roster. You want to instill confidence in your guys, like you guys can get this done, and they did. They played, I think, to more than their potential, and that's the reality of it. At the end of the day, that's what it is. This team exceeded expectations, played to a very strict structure imposed by one of the best coaches in the league. And I'm not taking that away from him. The Islanders were swept in the second round, but that you can't fault Barry Trotz for that too much. Too much. He's got a little bit. There were a couple decisions, that I think should have been made, such as starting Greiss in Game 4, shuffling the lines before Game 3. Still, there's only so much he can do. He was a fantastic coach. He's going to be the Jack Adams winner this year. Hang your heads up high. Hold your heads up high. Don't hang your heads, Islanders fans. If you're a Leafs fan, you should have your head down low. But if you're an Islanders fan, have it up high. Okay? This team was phenomenal all season. An absolute treat to watch, an absolute treat to follow. And, that's just the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes, it doesn't go in your favor. And Carolina did get very lucky. And sometimes just a bounce or two. That's it. That was a series. A couple of bounces. Bad break in Game 2. Bad break in the overtime goal in Game 1. And just not enough from the offense in Games 3 or 4. That's it. It sucks. It does. But, it hurts right now, but don't let it hurt you a few days from now or, when Carolina is eliminated and all that. When Carolina is eliminated, I'll feel better. Nothing against them. Listen, it's hard to hate the Hurricanes. I'm salty about it now. I'm extremely salty about it now. Not against Carolina. Well, a little bit against Carolina. I'm not salty about... Look, it's hard to hate the Hurricanes, for me. There's too many similarities between both fan bases. Both fan bases have been ridiculed by the league for the last decade plus. Both fan bases have been marginalized, and they used to talk about the Islanders moving to Kansas City. They're going to Quebec. They're going to Seattle. The Carolina Hurricanes face the same thing. They kept saying it's not a hockey market. It's not conducive to the league to keep them there, whatever. And this should sound familiar. New coach, new GM, new ownership. Top down for Carolina in the offseason, just like the Islanders. Both teams way overperformed. And it's hard for me to swallow that now because I'm still very salty. But good for them, honestly. Good for Carolina and their fans. They should enjoy it now because they'll get bounced in round 3 in 5 or 6 games. But still, that aside, good for them. Good for them, seriously. And I know it doesn't sound that way. Like I said, I'm salty. I am. The Islanders should have had him. But they didn't. Because Carolina was hungrier. But good for them. So I don't want to repeat myself too much. I feel like I'm going on a rambling tangent. But thanks, guys, for sticking around. It's been a great season. And there's gonna be more of this from me in the future. As you see, I got my beautiful OBS format set up here. I got my big red logo in that corner. I got my graphic up in front of the Coliseum Ice. That was the preseason game against the Flyers. That was a great game. I was there last preseason, but I hope to do more of this in the future. It's easier for me to go live because I'm a little rusty when it comes to video editing, but I feel a little more comfortable outlining a couple of points and just kind of like spewing myself on camera. So expect a little bit more of this in the coming weeks, months, etc. into next season. Listen, I'm gonna sign off in a bit, but listen, Islanders fans, again, it hurts now. Don't let it hurt much longer. Okay, it's been a great year. Things should only be getting better. they're going to have more than $35 million in cap space this coming offseason with guys like Matt Duchene, Artemi Panarin, Matt Zuccarello. Top-down offensive guys are going to be on the free agent. This is going to be one of the best free agent classes this offseason. I'm going to have a lot to talk about in terms of who they should keep, who they should go after, who should go, whatever. But, that's for a later time. For now, it's the way she goes. I don't know if there's any Trailer Park Boys fans out there, but look, Ray, what's Ricky's last name? Doesn't matter. One of the characters in Trailer Park Boys got a trademark term, the effing way she goes. That's the effing way she goes. Sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't. She didn't go. They didn't go. It's the way she goes. So, until next season, until this coming preseason, whatever, I'm Matt DiGiacomo, Big Red Sports, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. We're far from done here. We got plenty to talk about in the next coming weeks, but chin up. Sucks now, but it'll get much better. Don't you dare let Toronto fans talk smack to you either, because I'm already seeing it. It's laughable. Kyle Dubas, that boy wonder GM, has got his work cut out for him, taking one of the best cores last season and absolutely annihilating it with ridiculous cap decisions. Ha! 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 Couldn't even get out of the first round. Ha! All right, guys. That's it for this one. Thank you again for listening to my ramblings. Let's go Islanders into the 2019-20 season. Oh, they got to round 2 this year. Cup next year? Well, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Cup finals next year? Round 3 next year? I don't know. But this team made the second round. Pepper in a little more center depth. Pepper in a scoring winger or two. Pepper in the bread man. Duchene? I don't know. This team, the sky's the limit for what they can do right now because, like I said, phenomenal. Anyway, take care, guys. Good night. Let's go Islanders.